Um, maybe let's do a thought experiment here. There are five people on the panel. Let's say Jesus joins the panel. He just appears sixth panel right here. It's like, what's up, guys? What are y'all talking about? So I'm like, wait, okay, I have a question for the panel. Now that you're here, Jesus, I have a question. Okay. So the last instance of child abuse, okay, where a parent abused the child in unimaginable ways. I'm not going to describe it. You can imagine. Okay. Um, I want to ask each person on the panel, do you think that should have been stopped? Okay. JP, you say what? Presumably,
So
yes.
if what happens in the panel, just ask it one more time. If Jesus Christ comes
So
on the
Jesus
panel,
joins our panel right alongside us. And then I'm like, oh, wait, okay, I have a question for everyone. Now, Jesus, I'm going to ask you last. But I'm going to ask each person this question, okay? The last kid that was extremely abused by their parent, should that have happened or should that have been stopped? I would say yes. JP, you would say?
I would say that shouldn't have happened. Yeah.
Okay, Manny, you would say?
Same thing JP said.
And Lance, would you say?
Same thing.
What would Jesus say?
Jesus would say, I would hold them accountable for the actions that they did, and they will pay for their actions.
Then I would say, Jesus, you didn't answer the question.
So if I'm going to quote what Jesus says, we see in the Bible that God of Jesus Christ has not promised to spare us from suffering. Even suffering that seems senseless to us, but there's a promise. God has promised to be with us, assuring nothing can separate us from his faithful love, not even death. So what you see as death as being useless, right? We're seeing it's not, because in the sense that he's with Christ and the love that he has for him, because the Bible never says that suffering is not part of life. He shows us that even Paul went through suffering and he went through pain. And it wasn't like you come to Christ, God that came to me, none of that would happen.
Let me tell you what Jesus said.
The question is this. Look, the question is this. We all agree that should have not happened. Someone should have stopped them. Does Jesus agree with us?
Yeah, Jesus agrees that shouldn't have happened.
That's all
God allows the world to play its course.
If Jesus agrees with us, he was the only one that could have stopped them, because we don't know who the last person. We weren't there for the last child that was abused. So now it looks like that either Jesus is not all good, or he's a failure, or he didn't know about it.
I would disagree that Jesus is a failure if he allows free creatures to do free things.
No, he thinks it should be stopped. You said he agreed with us.
Yeah, he agreed it shouldn't have happened.
We didn't care about the abuser's free will.
Yeah, he agreed that it shouldn't have happened because Christ hates sin. But it doesn't mean that it's not going to happen despite Christ hating it, because Christ will ultimately judge everybody for what they did in the end.
The specific thing is whether it should be stopped, right?
Yeah, and we already agreed.
Did Jesus want to stop that?
Did I what?
Did Jesus want to stop that instance of child abuse?
So did Jesus want to stop it? I'm sure that in the grand scheme of things, Jesus wants to judge humanity as a whole.
Seems like he disagrees with us. Then
let me tell you this, Danny, let me tell you this. That's why in our worldview, Jesus Christ died for everybody, and he's patient, right? So what you see as, why doesn't God just zap his finger and get rid of evil? It's because he'd have to get rid of us. Jesus Christ is patient, and because he's patient, he's waiting for everybody to repent, because if they do not, there will be consequences for that. Oh, look, here's my best friend.
So let me get this clear. You're saying that we all agree that someone should have stopped this parent from severely abusing their child, right? And then you said at one point that Jesus, the sixth person that joined our panel, right, would have agreed with us as well. Now, if the second that Jesus agrees that they should be stopped, that someone should stop them, okay, is the second that he has a desire to stop them. But the fact that they were not stopped means that Jesus, for some reason, did not succeed in stopping them.
All right. So again, and I think I responded to this. Jesus wouldn't want that to happen. Jesus is not the author of sin. He wouldn't have wanted that to happen. So we all agree there. The fact that it happened, right, doesn't make Christ the problem of evil or a failure, because he's allowed free creatures to do free things, even if it means harming each other. So I
God,
understand what you're
to
saying.
clarify, Jesus wants to allow something that he finds disallowable.
So in the grand scheme of things, Christ allows all actions to happen, all actions, whether good or bad. He allows all things to happen, and then he will
This is why
judge
it sounds funny
everybody
to me.
accordingly.
This is why
Go
it sounds funny to me, because what it means to stop something is to not allow it, right?
Mhm.
If
Yes.
God believes that something should not be allowed, but then allows it, right? There's some kind of practical contradiction here. There's a performance. Either he didn't have the power, he was ignorant, or he's irrational in some kind of way.
Yeah,
Or-
so the language that you're using, because if you use that kind of language, I hear what you're saying, but I would say God doesn't will that to happen. He doesn't like it. It burdens him, right? So these are languages I would rather use. Burden, he doesn't like it, right? Allow, when we say the word allow, we mean that God is let me use another word. When we use the word allow, we're saying that God is permitting humanity to operate as they will, even though it doesn't ultimately align with what he wills.
Okay,
So,
let's use that language of permitting. All right.
okay.
Is the last instance of severe child abuse permissible or impermissible?
It's permissible in the sense that humans have the freedom to do it, even though God doesn't want it
Is
to
there
happen.
anything in human history that is impermissible?
In regard to free action or
Anything.
anything that's impermissible that God,
Anything in human history that is impermissible.
yeah, I mean, we have the 10 commandments, right? Like, just to make it real
So that's
short,
happened. Something that's happened that's impermissible.
something that has happened that's impermissible.
Is there anything that's happened in the past in human history that's impermissible?
I would say that there's a lot of things that have happened that God doesn't like, but
But that's not what I'm
ultimately,
asking. I'm
yeah, well,
asking.
let me finish. Let me finish. If they've come to pass, ultimately, God has, in the grand scheme of things, allowed the timeline to continue.
Okay, you brought up the word permit, so I'm using your language now. The opposite of permissible is impermissible.
Mhm.
Is there any? Can you describe to me any event in human history that was impermissible?
Yeah, so again, that gets a little complicated because again, I'm not permitted to fly, right? I'm not permitted to violate the laws. So I would say that in the grand scheme of things, right? Everything that has occurred, God has
Permitted.
foreknown to happen. I mean, I don't know how to answer that question, Danny, in a way that's satisfactory because everything that has come to pass, everything that has happened has been foreknown to happen and permitted to happen in the sense that the free creature did as he willed, even though God didn't will that thing to happen.
Okay, so you're sort of unsure whether anything in human history was impermissible.
Yeah, because we believe that God foreknows all things that will happen, and God can, in theory, stop a free creature, but He doesn't stop the free creature. He allows things to go as they will down the
Okay,
timeline.
so when I asked each panelist, we all said yes. I said the last instance of child abuse, should something be stopped? Should that have been stopped? We all said yes. What
Mhm.
it means to say that it should be stopped is to say it's too bad to allow. Too bad to allow means unallowable. It's not allowable. If it's not allowable, it's impermissible. So we, all five of us, thought that the last instance of child abuse was impermissible. But if you're sticking to what I think you're saying, is that God thinks that everything that has happened is permissible. So we're just wrong. Or rather, the God that you worship and you have there's a conflict of values about what you find to be something, what you find to be permissible or
Yeah,
allowable.